So everyone, welcome to our 2021 Philanthropies Spotlight on Human Trafficking. Now, human trafficking is an issue worth talking about because it's the fastest and most profitable illegal enterprise in the world. You may not know this, but it's a $150 billion a year industry, and according to the United Nations, there are more than 40 million people who are enslaved. It's one of the worst scourges that afflicts mankind. But there's good news, and you'll be hearing about it today. You'll be learning about a relatively new approach to combating human trafficking. It involves preventing money laundering. It's money laundering that enables human trafficking. I want to explain this by using a comparison to the Hydra. The Hydra, and yes, you see it now. Okay, the Hydra is a mythological monster from ancient Greece, and it had many snake heads. The Hydra fed on human beings, and when anyone cut one snake head off, two more grew back. Oh, and by the way, extra credit just on mythology. The heads also had the ability to move around at lightning speeds, and all of them acted independently of each other, making it close to impossible to kill the Hydra.
Guy's gonna come and pick me up.
Are we all hearing?
Yes, we're hearing you, Mitzi.
Okay, good. Now, for those of you who study human trafficking, isn't the Hydra a good way of describing the business of human trafficking? We try to fight human trafficking, and it's as if it has a superpower. It just keeps coming back stronger. So how in Greek mythology did Hercules finally kill the Hydra? He did something different. Each time he cut off one of the snake heads, he'd take a flaming hot sword and cauterize the wound so no fresh heads could grow back. Well, that's what we have the ability to do today, something similar. The superpower today that may be able to stop the Hydra of human trafficking is we can keep the traffickers from being able to spend their money. Increasingly, we have the ability to do that. We know a lot about how we can slow it down. We may even be able to kill it. How would we do this? Human trafficking would not be the global enterprise that it is today without money laundering. I have for you today 3 panelists who will be sharing with you their insights and expertise on combating human trafficking by combating money laundering. I'll introduce all of them in more detail, but just before each one of them speaks, you'll hear more about them, but for now, an overview. We'll be hearing from Gary Murray about how money laundering works. We'll hear from Jasprit Randhawa about some of the weaknesses in our anti-money laundering efforts. And finally, from Kevin Sullivan about why this matters to each of us. And we're going to start with Gary Murray. And do we have Gary Murray's image? Yes. Gary Murray works for Chartered Bank, and he's the Director for Financial Crime Compliance for Europe and the Americas. Besides this, he was the founder and director of the New York High Intensity Financial Crime Area Task Force. Gary also spent 17 years as the Assistant Director of Intelligence, U.S. Customs. He's the anti-money laundering ninja, Gary Murray. Gary?
Hello.
Hi. You'll see that
It's been a long time since I've been a ninja.
Well, I just made you one, and everybody's supposed to call you that from now on. Ready? Okay, Gary, since I know that you deal with money laundering, and with one of the issues that if you're a money launderer that you're going to be up against is you've got cash. The question is, how do you spend it? But to give people just a feeling for how much $1 million is, tell me, just a wild guess, or not a wild guess. In fact, let me ask the audience, show me by a show of hands, if all this money that I'm holding up, show of hands is, am I holding up $1 million? 100,000? Do love it. 50,000? All right, I'll ask Gary the same question. Gary, dear, since you deal
Well,
with these
first, I think you have a lot of new friends. It's very often you see on YouTube or that people flashing cash, and it's usually not from good purposes.
But this is a good purpose. No, this is a great purpose, good purpose. This is to put you on the spot, Gary.
Yeah, just to give you a little background, I'm guessing you have about $50,000 there.
Exactly right. You nailed it. I know who's the professional in this group.
You know, I know it's hard to believe, but actually cash is a problem, for the bad guys. To give you an example, that $50,000 you have in $100 bills probably weighs, a little more than a pound, around a pound. If you had 454 bills, whether they're dollar bills, $100 bills, weighs a pound. So if you had $1 million in cash and they were all singles, it would be 2,200 pounds. So you can see the problem that an organization would have where it's a cash intensive business, whether it's human trafficking, whether, drugs, whatever the source of the illegal funds are. The problem is, what do you do with it? So you have the money. The best thing is to get it into a bank. But we all know the banks are saying, hey, we're looking for that. So if Mitzi goes to the bank today and deposits $50,000 in cash, automatically the bank is going to file a currency transaction report because you're doing cash. The second thing is someone's going to look at that and say, is this suspicious? Is this unusual for Mitzi, to be doing this? And is there
No, it's totally normal. I do that all the time.
If there's a logical business purpose to it. If not, they are going to probably file something with the US government. All right. So what's your options? The best is to go to a bank because once it's in your account, you can move it, you can transfer it. And I think Kevin's going to talk more about that. But what else are your options? You can put it in a suitcase and go to Bermuda. You can go to Mexico. You can get in a car, drive across the border, but you still have cash. And when you get to some countries, they actually don't use US dollars. So you need to convert it into the local currency. So you're obviously having lots of issues here. So, what do I do? Well, maybe I buy a container full of refrigerators and I send those refrigerators to another country. And when it gets there, they sell them and they get the cash in the local currency. But now you're undercutting the local businesses. You're infringing upon the taxes. You're hurting the industry. So more and more people are going to be suffering. And when we talked about the money laundering issues, there are over 260 crimes in the United States that an individual can be charged money laundering with. Those are called predicate offenses or specified unlawful activities. So the next time anyone listening listens to the news, okay, and they talk about someone conducting some kind of criminal activity, listen to see if they say this person's been charged with and money laundering. And you'll say, well, why are they charging money laundering? Because in most cases, the money laundering statute has significantly more penalties or sentencing guidelines. They're much stronger sentences than just the normal criminal activity itself. So be aware of that. I mean, it's something that you key in on. So the key is, how do I get it into a bank? Lots of different ways. I can go to a local company and I can try and buy merchandise from them. I could start a front company. I can do various different things of smurfing the money, getting it into an account. Smurfing means going and buying, sending someone out and having them buy $100,000 a day in money orders, and having those money orders then as a deposit in a bank, which is going to be less suspicious than the cash itself. So the key here to remember is that all of these crimes, with over 260 that can charge money laundering, there is an underlying criminal activity, and as a result, there is a victim. And that victim could be the person who was defrauded, the person who had the credit card scam, the bank account that was tapped, the elderly scams that are going on, or whatever it is, human trafficking. And the way they get the money and move the money, there is always going to be a victim when there is money laundering involved.
I love that background that you're giving us, and I'm going to invite our listeners, our viewers, save up some questions for him and for anybody else that you hear. Put them in the chat, and we'll try to get to them before our hour is up. Gary, thank you so much. And we will now move on to our next panelist, Jaspreet Randhawa. She's a fintech entrepreneur, and she's founder and CEO of Resource Verified. It's a global software platform for anti-money laundering due diligence. And she's had more than 20 years of executive experience in the global financial services technology industry. And for full disclosure, she also works for the organization I head, Win This Fight, Stop Human Trafficking Now. And I have all the admiration in the world for the anti-money laundering oracle, Jaspreet Randhawa. Jaspreet, in entrepreneurship classes, they always advise future entrepreneurs, find a hole and fill it. What hole does Resources Verified fill? And as you answer that, talk with us about how that relates to human trafficking. Jaspreet?
Absolutely. Thank you, Mitzi. I love the graphic. I should have worn a hoodie if I saw that earlier. It really fit the scene, but I don't have one handy, so we'll just go with that. So first of all, thank you very much for including me in this. Absolutely a very, very important topic. And before I jump into technology, as you know, my background is from finance and fintech, and I live my life in numbers. And like you said, as an entrepreneur, we're always looking to fill holes. What's broken, what can we fill? And it's always driven by numbers. But before I go into numbers, if I may, I wanted to just share a brief story with yourself and with the audience. And I'll tell you at the end why I'm sharing that. And it's a story very close to my heart. It's about a very close friend of mine who lives in Dallas, and a fairly affluent family, and they're neighbors with another great family. And his family is a little daughter called Samantha. They call her Sammy. And Sammy goes to a really, really posh private school. And just like every other day on a sunny Wednesday, Sammy goes to school and she doesn't come back. So I know you already know what probably happened. So like any parent, they immediately called the school, they called the friends, they called, every other place where she goes for any activities. No sign of her. They contact the police, and the police are going through the normal process of, how soon can they look for a missing person. But anyways, this family has resources, right? So they hired ex-FBI officers, and they gave them all the information, and they say, go find a little girl. And then for the next several months, my friend in Dallas, his wife and the neighbors would get calls in the middle of the night that, oh, at a certain truck stop, there's going to be a rendezvous and some girls will be brought in for some horrific activity that I won't go into. So this family and my friend's wife would jump into a car, and so many times, like in the middle of the night, they're driving at 95 miles an hour with hope to find their girl. And this happened month after month after month, and no sign of Samantha. So anyways, 8 months go by and they get another call, and like any parent, they're not going to throw in the towel and say, we tried so many times. No, you never give up hope. It's probably the most beautiful thing. So they get in the car, they drive again, and they're at this truck stop, and there's some disgusting rendezvous going on, and they see this little girl walk out of a bathroom, and that's Samantha. So they scream, Samantha. So this little girl, Samantha, let me highlight, is 14 years old. She's looking at her parents and she's looking at the police, and she's so terrified that instead of running towards them, she runs away. She's running towards the truck. So, but anyways, they chase her down, they bring her home. This family has all the resources in the world, all the love in the world to give to her. And here is Samantha. So today, Samantha is 16. She hasn't left her home since then. She wakes up in the middle of the night screaming so many times. And the worst is they do not have a single mirror in the house, or at least the rooms that she's in, because if she ever sees a mirror, she has to break it because she cannot see herself. She cannot see the sight of herself. And the reason, I don't mean to put everyone in the doldrums, but the reason I wanted to share the story is for two reasons. One, I have seen so many movies on human trafficking, right? So unless you're there, you can't really understand it. And I'm not saying I was there, but I'm trying to feel what this girl's going through. And I cannot even imagine what she's going through. But the way it's portrayed in movies, like the Taken movies are great movies, but here, you know, the big dad, strong dad goes, beats the bad guys, brings the daughter home. And the next day she's taking singing and piano lessons. It's unrealistic. That is not how it happens. And I think it's a shame that it is minimized in such a way that, oh, this happened and then you're okay. No, you're not okay. This girl has a long journey ahead of her, and she has every resource in the world. And think of the other 40 million who have nothing. They come out of it. They don't have love. They don't have money. They don't have family. They have nothing. And the second reason I wanted to bring this up was because I've lived in all parts of the world. I live in America today, and I'm so fortunate about it. And I have a lot of friends who I talk to about it. And a lot of my friends, and no disrespect to them, but oftentimes we live in a bubble. And a lot of my friends I speak to, they say, oh, yes, yeah, that happens in India, right? In the poor neighborhoods. And that's sad because the awareness is so low that no, yes, it happens there, but no, it's happening in our cul-de-sacs. This can happen anywhere. And I'm not saying we should care today because it gets happening in our regions. We should care because none of us are immune. And if we let it happen to somebody else, there is no reason it will not happen to us. So we should start literally today, start saying, we care. I know that everyone who's on this call and taking the time obviously cares. So thank you for that. And thank you for people like Mitzi to literally devote her life to do this, which is just absolutely fantastic. But sorry to kind of go off the topic, Mitzi, but this story has been just such a burden on me ever since I've heard it, and you just feel so helpless. And all I'll ask is just think about it. What if tomorrow you wake up and you never want to look at your face again? Like you imagine being so disgusted with yourself, and this is a little girl that she never wants to look at herself again. So, but now that I put everyone in the doldrums, that's not the intent. This is all about hope. We want to build hope. This is not a disease that can't be cured. This is self-inflicted by humans. Some humans with a twisted mind, but all in one reason. And the reason is money. Everyone is the greed to get more money, that I don't care, I will sell you, or I will sell your organs or do anything to you just so I can have more money. We can't change the people, but we can change the processes, and we can change what's broken. And it all starts with all of us. I was thinking about it years ago, and I thought, well, it's just little me, and what can I do? But the thing is, when all the little me's add up, because little me met Mitzi Perdue, and all of a sudden, our network is just getting bigger and bigger, and more people are getting involved. So if anyone's on the call saying, but it's just me and what can I do? No, it's never just you, because I promise you, just a few months ago, I was thinking it's just little me, but let me see what I can do at my end. But it's little me, and it wasn't. So Mitzi, I totally went off the topic here, but thank you for allowing me to share this story. And I know we only have 5 minutes on this part, but
that's great. Take more time, because you've just done one of the most important things in the world, which is humanize it. Your story is so moving and so true. And you know, the fact that it's not happening in some faraway underdeveloped country. No, it is happening in our cul-de-sacs. Take all the time you need, because I love what you're saying. Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much, Mitzi. So I'll be brief, and because I know we want the audience to ask us questions too, and it's about all of you. So I started, my background is in financial services, and I started a fintech with a tremendous group of people. I think a bunch of them are on the school as well. And our goal all along was that, obviously we all come from Wall Street, so we are capitalists and we're not ashamed about it. But at the same time, we were thinking that there are a lot of ways you can make money, right? But how can we do something really, really good along the way in life? What can we do that makes an impact? And having been around Wall Street and technology for so long, we see so many things that are broken all the time. Like, why, if we fix that and we create efficiency? So coming from Wall Street, you always think of, how do you lower costs for the banks and create efficiencies? Those are the only two things you always think of. So my group and I thought about it slightly differently. Said, okay, we can do that. Of course, you can do a lot of things to lower costs and create efficiency for the banks and create a business. But how about we do something where we can make a difference in the world? And what is something that we can all relate to? So we looked at one of the first things that all of us actually synonymously came up with, and I don't even know how, and I think that's how we bonded, is human suffering. Because oftentimes there are a lot of things we can't solve, like maybe we can't solve world hunger. I don't want to say we can't, we can solve everything. But when we looked at human trafficking, we said, wow, this is totally self-inflicted by us humans, right? We're not trying to solve a disease here, but this is a self-inflicted thing. And how can we solve it within our financial world and then using technology? And obviously the very obvious choice and a glaring thing in front of is money laundering. Because anytime you're committing an illicit crime, it's never associated with something good, or bad, dirty money is never associated with anything good. So the top 3 criminal enterprises in the world are drugs, terrorism, and human trafficking. And all of us have seen them all. 9/11 was a result of loaded money. But human trafficking, as Mitzi pointed out earlier, is the fastest growing in the world, and soon is going to go past drugs. And it's also the most profitable business, because unlike drugs that you just take and consume once, human trafficking is, and I hate using this word, but the people are recycled over and over and over again, which makes it it's just so disgusting, but it makes it extremely profitable. And not only do they do that, then they sell their organs. And I was looking online at what the cost of each organ is. You can actually see it. It's online. It's just disgraceful. So we created this technology. We said, obviously, we can't, when you're creating a tech, you can't be looking to boil the ocean. But we have, and I won't bore everyone with the details, and happy to have offline discussions, but we have created a platform for doing AML global due diligence on a global basis. We are working with regulators on that, because something like this cannot be looked in isolation. And the holes that we looked at was why it's not working, obviously, because one big thing is when financial institutions look at due diligence, oftentimes it's looked at in isolation, it's looked at in pockets, and it's looked at it from the intent that we don't want to get fined. And I get it. That's their job. A bank is or a hedge fund is in their business to make money, and they don't want to get fined. And it's very hard for them in isolation to look at a global picture or see how we can change something. So we took many, many steps back, so that even before we jump into the pool, we have all the relevant people involved, not only from regulatory perspective, government perspective, cloud perspective. And we are on the path of building that and bringing that not only as US, but more on a global basis. And I'm seeing this window pop up at the bottom all the time. So I'm sorry if I got distracted, but happy to answer many of those questions. And hopefully we'll get to that in this panel. But Mitzi, I will stop talking now, because as you know, I can talk for the next hour.
I wish we had time, because I'd love for you to talk for the next hour. And by the way, both Gary and Jaspreet, well, you're going to like the comments that you can read in the chat room. But a quick question for you, because it's kind of on my mind as well as the person who asked it. And it's back to your story about the 14-year-old who ended up being trafficked. Was she kidnapped or groomed?
She was kidnapped, leaving school.
Okay, and there will be time for additional questions, everybody. Let's move on right now to Kevin Sullivan. And Kevin founded and runs an academy that trains people in anti-money laundering techniques. He's had 30 years of anti-money laundering experience, including 21 years with the New York State Police. And during his service, he was the coordinator for one of the largest anti-money laundering task force in the world. We're lucky to have with us today the anti-money laundering expert's expert, Kevin Sullivan. Kevin, talk with us about how money laundering affects everyone. And this, I have a part B to this question, how it enables human trafficking. And by the way, when you answer that, you'll also be answering a couple of questions in the chat room. Draw a tight connection between human trafficking and money laundering, and how money laundering, attacking that, can attack human trafficking. You're on. And we need you to unmute. And I'm going to keep monologuing.
Thank you.
Until,
Thank
all
you.
right.
Sorry. Thank you for that introduction. I was looking at that and I saw Gary was the ninja and Jaspreet was the oracle, and I'm afraid, oh great, I'm going to get like the money laundering jabroni or something like that. It's just, but thank you for that. That was very nice of you. I'm sure my mother sent a note to you about that. But
Well, no,
anyway.
actually, she paid me quite a bit to
That's how you got that money. That's right.
Yeah. Where do you think I got it from?
Yeah. Oh, Mom. Okay. So anyway.
Thank you, Mrs. Murray. I'll make good use of it. I'm going to buy that Lamborghini I had in mind.
So anyway, so let me just backtrack a little bit about this, what money laundering is, because I'm assuming that probably a lot of the people on here today have heard about money laundering. Every time you watch a cop show on TV, you hear it there, oh, with money laundering, or you read, like Gary mentioned before, you read an article in the paper, someone gets charged with a crime and money laundering. So let's go, what exactly is it? So first of all, what it is it's the profit that someone makes from committing a bad deed, a criminal act. So you can't launder money if you don't have a criminal act. So I have to do something criminal first, whether that's human trafficking, whether that's drug dealing, whether that's arms trafficking. There has to be what they call a predicate crime. The money that I make, the profit that I make from that crime, now I have to do something. I can't just spend it willy-nilly. As Gary mentioned before, there's all sorts of government reports. I can't just walk into the Ferrari dealership and say, I want to buy a brand new Ferrari with all that cash you got in your hand, because someone's going to ask, where did you get it? Where did it come from? Reports are sent into the government, and guys like Gary and myself, when we were both working in law enforcement, we would read this and say, how does this guy here, Joey Bag of Donuts over here, who never had a job in his life, how does he buy a $250,000 Ferrari? Huh. He's never paid taxes. He's never worked. Something fishy with that. Let's investigate. So you have to launder the money. And what that does is that tries to pull the wool over the good guy's eyes. So it tries to make the money appear to have come from a legitimate source. And if it appears to have come from a legitimate source, then by all means, I can buy the Ferrari. So that's the kind of like the layman's definition of money laundering. So let me go into a second. Like, who's doing this? Well, 95% of all crimes, pick a crime at all. I'm not sound like a magician here. Pick a crime, pick any crime. Pick a crime, and 95% of it's going to be for money. You're going to have certain crimes that are done for passion, and you're going to have certain crimes that are done by people who are emotionally disturbed. But everything else is going to fall into that. I'm doing it for profit. I'm doing it for money. So imagine this setup. I'm a bad guy. And one evening, I'm sitting in the bad guy bar and grill, having a couple of drinks, trying to ponder my future. What am I going to do to make money here? What can I possibly do? I can deal drugs. I can make a lot of money dealing drugs. But the downside of that is there's a lot of heat from law enforcement in that area. You got the whole DEA. You have all sorts of law enforcement just looking only at drugs. And you got to deal with other drug dealers, and they'll kill you. And the other rival gangs and drug operation cartels, they kill you. There's no going to jail. They just kill you. So the risk may be too great for the reward for drug dealing. So what else could I do? I could do arms trafficking. I could sell guns. But, the problem with selling guns or selling drugs, and Jasper hit on it for a second there, you can only sell it once. I got a kilo of cocaine. I sell it one time. I got a AK-47, I sell it one time, and then I got to get another load of drugs or another shipment of guns, smuggle it into the country, and figure out how to sell it and get a buyer. But wait a second, maybe I could try human trafficking. That's it, human trafficking. I can get somebody, I can get a human, mostly females, but they males also, and I can sell them again and again and again and again, over and over again. I don't have to worry about smuggling new people in. I can use the same one person over and over again. I don't have to get new buyers. Sometimes I can use the same buyer again and again and again. And there's little chance of detection because victims through the act of coercion are very unlikely to self-identify themselves to law enforcement. So what's my risk as a human trafficker? A lot less than it is if I'm a drug dealer or an arms trafficker. So I'm sitting there now at the bad guy bar and grill saying, that's it. I'm going to be a human trafficker. Around the drinks for all my dirtbag friends. That's it. But by the way, that's the professional term, dirtbag friends. That's usually I throw a couple of acronyms in front of that. But I know, Mitzi, you know, you got young ears, and I don't want to hear some of these things I say. So, right. But so that's how. What a great idea! Less chance of getting caught, and I can keep making value from the same product over and over again. Oh, this is the gift that keeps on giving for a bad guy. Why wouldn't you want to do that as a bad guy? So, but then it all comes down to when you do all that stuff. The profit that I'm making, I still have to figure out a way to pull the wool over the banker's eyes or the government's eyes to try to make it look like I am doing something appropriate. And Gary mentioned there a front company, classic money laundering technique. I don't want to get into all the techniques. We could be here all week talking about that stuff. But again, the concept being I'm a bad guy. I'm doing bad stuff. I'm going to pick the crime that has the less amount of risk for me and the most reward. And right now, that's human trafficking. That's absolutely human trafficking. So why wouldn't I? So you're fighting against that from the get-go. So you got to look at the bad guys, the mentality of the bad guys, and figure, well, they want to take the path of least resistance. And it's human trafficking right now. That's why it's exploding. And as you mentioned right off from the very beginning, you know, the $150 billion industry and growing. So how do we attack that? You attack it the same way we try to attack drugs and the same way we try to attack arms trafficking or weapons of mass destruction. You know, try to get at the money. Because if there's no profit in it, Mitzi, there's no profit in this, they're not going to do it. Move on to something else. Okay, there's no profit in human trafficking. You know what? Maybe I'll just steal your car instead because I can't make any profit over here. I got to try something else. So if you could put a damper on the profit, you have put a major dent in that $150 billion industry. And maybe you can't save everybody. In fact, I'm going to tell you right now, you're not going to save everybody. But if you save a few, maybe one, you know, you save the girl that Jasper spoke about. What if you could have saved her? What if you could have prevented her from that hideous life that she got led into? Man, that would have been great. That would have been fantastic. So, you know, sometimes we can't look at it like, how do we completely solve it and eradicate it altogether? Maybe we just got to start small and say, let's, you know, put some dents in it here and keep on building up on that, building blocks. You know, how do we go further and further with that? And now I completely forgot the rest of your questions.
Mitzi, this is Gary.
Yeah. Hi, Gary.
I know that, you know, when we've been speaking so far, the references have been toward human trafficking as it relates to sex trafficking. But it goes beyond that. I mean, we have child soldiers around the world. We have agricultural workers. We have fishermen in Asia that are trapped on vessels. We have domestic servitude. You know, it goes well beyond just sex trafficking into when you're talking about human trafficking. And the United States, is a destination country for this. It's important to know.
Well, I'd like one. First of all, let me thank Kevin. I loved what you have to say, and I keep wishing that we had more time. Maybe Mark Sainer will make that available one day. But I would like to ask all three of our panelists, somebody jump in with tie a bow around it, just as specifically and concisely as possible. I think I'm looking at Jaspreet because you're exceptionally good at this. Why attacking money laundering is attacking human trafficking. Somebody put a bow, raise your hand and I'll call on you, and unmute yourselves, please. Okay, Jaspreet.
You already picked me, so then I raised my hand as well, Mitzi.
Thank you.
The people who are in human trafficking, meaning the traffickers, people who become traffickers, they become traffickers to make money, period, right? So when they make money, it's illicit money. So they cannot use that money because it's so much money, they just can't walk into a bank and deposit it because they need to show source of funds, which was very nicely explained by Kevin earlier. So in order to do that, they need to launder their money some way or form. So because they need to run it through a regulated entity to wash that money, and which is where money laundering becomes a huge thing. Either they disperse that fund into several different banks in little amounts, so it stays below the threshold. You can do it all over the world. The banks are not really talking to each other, and that's where it becomes. So once it goes into a regulated entity and you take it out, now it's washed money. So now if they take it to another bank, or where did you get this? Oh, I just took this out of my account at JP Morgan. Here you go. It's washed money. And now you can do anything with it. And the other thing is to buy some expensive assets. You can buy diamonds, but even there, those are regulated entities now, where you have to show where you're getting the money from. So it can be done. So to wash money, you can either buy something very expensive, or you can run it, but ultimately you need to run it through a regulated entity.
So to the extent that we can stop their ability to spend their money through our anti-money laundering efforts, we're making a dent in human trafficking. And Jaspreet, while I've got you unmuted, you have a fabulous statistic about how for every trafficker that we put away, preferably from getting, let's assume it's a him for the moment, if we got him for money laundering and he has one of those really consequential jail time results, if we put one trafficker away, how many people are we saving from being trafficked?
That's a great question, Mitzi. And those are the numbers I was talking of that we can talk about. But by removing a single trafficker based on all our research that we've gathered from law enforcement, so the conservative estimate is that a single trafficker over their lifetime has trafficked 100 people. So removing one trafficker technically saves 100 people from being trafficked.
So, getting back to my image of the Hydra, you cut one head off and two more sprout. No, but if you can cut it off and like cauterize it so that trafficker's in jail, and it's disincentivizing for others, I think we really could make a huge difference. And I want to switch gears at the moment right now. And in approximately 10 minutes or so, I'd like to answer some questions that come from the chat. And John Bellamini has offered to curate them for me. John, would you come on and give us some questions that, and sure. we can invite the panelists to raise their hand to answer, or knowing this panel, I think you'll just jump in. Go for it.
Great. And for those who want to stay over, we can always stay over a bit. But for now, I picked some questions out of it. One of the questions was about Samantha. Was she groomed or kidnapped?
Sorry, I couldn't really hear you.
Sorry, was Samantha groomed or kidnapped is one of the questions.
Samantha was kidnapped.
Great. And one of the questions that's recurring there is, where can we learn more and support?
I think that everybody should answer. Anybody who wants to know about, whether it's Gary, Kevin, or Jaspreet, who wants to know about your work, give us an answer, and I will call on Kevin first, but also write it in the chat so that people can find you. Kevin, where do they find you?
They find me at amltrainer.com.
And that's the Anti-Money Laundering Training
Anti-Money
Academy.
Laundering Training Academy, right.
Love it. Gary, you're up.
I'm putting my email into the chat box.
Yep.
Perfect.
If everybody could put their information in the chat box, that'd be helpful.
And Jaspreet, tell where people can get hold of you.
Absolutely. So I will put my email in the chat box as well, but I can be found in two places, either Win This Fight through the links that we have on there or through resourceverify.com. We have a link in there. So if anyone emails there, those emails will come to anyone on my team and ultimately to me.
Beautiful. And John, I'm going to go back to you and the
Great.
curated questions.
Great. So another general question. Is there a general site to learn more about human trafficking? Is there one that you trust, Mitzi? Or is it really that fragmented?
Well, personally, I'd love it if you come to winthisfight.org, which is the organization I head, and something that I'd particularly love if people have the time to do it. I write a weekly blog for the Association of Foreign Press Correspondents. I also write a weekly blog, the anti-trafficking blog for Psychology Today. And there are links to all of those. By the way, these are twice a week, or rather, I post 2 times a week with my weekly blogs for these organizations. If you'll come to winthisfight.org and look for Mitzi and writing or articles, I've been doing this, I think there's more than 100 of these articles, and they will tell you in-depth research that comes from interviewing super duper experts in the field. I think you'll find it, or the feedback that I get is that this is original and helpful. So please come to that.
Great. And I encourage each of the panels to look in the chat when you can, and there's questions that are directed towards you if people want to learn about your organization. Another question that seemed interesting, how do you redirect the incentives away from the opportunity? Is there a positive incentive strategy here that may work, like when we go to Colombia and try to have them replant crops, which I don't know if that works or not, but you know what I'm trying to say.
I think one of the things is just making it unprofitable.
Yep.
If again, is the risk greater than the reward? Like I said, with the drug dealing, there's a higher chance of getting caught, and there's a higher chance of getting dead by other drug dealers. So the greater risk. So what's the risk involved in human trafficking? So if we're not going to put the effort and the forces in play to make it more difficult to do human trafficking, then you're just you're building a golden trail for bad guys to follow. So we have to make a commitment to concentrate on the financial aspect of the crime, so that in turn it helps with asset seizures, and you can help turn human trafficking from this low risk, high reward crime to one that offenders don't want to see any profit in anymore, and due to increased incarceration and the loss of assets.
That brings me to a question. John, I'm going to take my privilege as being moderator. There's a question that I would absolutely love somebody to answer. And that is, I'm going to guess that there may be some young people watching this, or the parents of young people. And that is, what if somebody wants to have a career in anti-money laundering? What are some of the skills that they would need? And I'm going to guess their motivation is they get to be a superhero. They get to have a huge return on their effort in the result of demotivating the bad guys to take up trafficking. So what does a young person need to learn if they wanted to go into anti-money laundering? And I think the appropriate person to answer that would be the head of the Anti-Money Laundering Training Academy. Kevin, you're up.
Well, I mean, it's all going to start out with A, you need desire to do it, and B, you have the proper training. So there are places to go for training. I'm not just going to promote my places. There's associations to be part of that get involved with this. There are groups to be part of that can get into the training aspect of it. And once you got one of two roads to go, either law enforcement or financial. And if you're in law enforcement, so now you're looking at working for ICE or FBI or police agencies, or if you're in banking, the financial institutions, or the fintech side of it, like Jasper is involved with, kind of come up with the software and then the analysis of this. So, but all that, you just can't walk in willy-nilly. You have to have some kind of training behind you to understand that. So there are not a whole lot of universities out there that have classes or even accreditation for financial crimes. There's a few out there that do it, but not many. And that's something that I would like to see in the future, is that it becomes a regular course of study at legitimate educational institutions. But until that happens, then training is going to have to be through private corporations, get the training necessary to understand money laundering, and then find a position where you can employ that, whether it's law enforcement or in the financial community.
Gary, does somebody have to be really good at, for example, math, accounting, artificial intelligence? Yeah, what
all those things help.
what else? I mean, again, assuming that there's either the parent of somebody who wants to be a hero or a young person who wants to be a hero and attack one of the worst scourges that affects mankind, namely human trafficking. A person who wants to be a hero, maybe they're in high school. Lots of math?
Mitzi, can I just, on that point,
No.
Gary, if I could just take my privileges as 361, is I know we try to find impact investing to solve philanthropic issues. And you mentioned going into the law enforcement, but there's a white hat hacker. We know how that works. If you can expose a Microsoft bug, they'll pay you to fix it. Is there any equivalent here? The second is, could there be whistleblowing? Since that's Microsoft is going to pay for that, there's no corporate sponsors. This feels like there should be some kind of gap to be filled. Whistleblowing, and maybe there is. I need to be enlightened. And if there's not, maybe there should be. Just as being an Anderson partner, we had a whistleblower Enron. Is there equivalent of that in legislation?
Who can answer that?
Gary, I think law enforcement has a general thing. I call it moiety, where they will pay up to 25% of the funds recovered, well, whatever the source of the illegal activity was. Now they may only pay 10 to 15%, but up to 25% of what the funds that were recovered due to criminal activity. So there is already a mechanism like that. Also, I think what Mitzi was referring to, a younger person interested in something like this, I think they need to find like-minded individuals that they can bounce ideas off of, or, as an example, Win This Fight as a website where they can go and maybe meet some people and have further discussions on that. And I think that would increase their interest. And it would then let them know what type of skills were necessary. The easiest thing to say, make sure you know Microsoft Suite. Everything from Excel onward is used constantly in reviewing the activities.
I just want to make a point there that I know that we all may want to be a superhero, but I also don't want anybody to become a vigilante either. Because in this thing, all roads here lead to law enforcement. You by yourself, you're not going to go out and arrest somebody and throw them in jail. It doesn't happen that way. The best you can do is point law enforcement, police, and then ultimately the prosecutors in the right direction, and point them at, hey, this guy over here is our trafficker, and that's the best you can hope for. So I want to be very careful with that. Be a hero. Hero, if you consider hero in terms of that you discovered something and you pointed the police in the right direction, absolutely, I'm all for it, 100% for it. But I just don't want to turn anybody into a street gang that is going to go out and try to do it themselves either, because then everybody gets in trouble then.
Well, just to follow up on that, Kevin, I'd love to make it very clear that there's a roadmap. If it's not clear, there are gray hats moving to white hats. Right. Because people are driven by profit for the good and the bad, and if they could just know that could redirect, and there are always these sort of gatekeepers, people doing things that they don't even realize that they're doing to enable this, but they could be redirected. I'm not so clear that the law enforcement profit incentive is clear, but I'm learning, and I'll learn more, and I'll just place marker that for now. Sorry, carry on, John. John is the reason John's speaking is John's the co-leader of our philanthropic interests and impact investing side. So just for context there. So carry on.
John,
Thank
do we
you.
have one more brief question?
We
Because I
do. We
want
have
to
what
lead.
we do. We do, and it's around cryptocurrency. Is it making things worse or better? And that's, I guess, the main question. And I guess I want to make a double question. And how can our group of family offices and investors, what industries should we avoid? So it's two questions. So one is cryptocurrency making it worse or better, and then what industries should we avoid as investors that we should stay away from? Those two questions.
So I can jump in on that. So at the moment, crypto is a money launderer's dream, right? Because the anonymity it gives you. But at the same time, luckily, the regulators are all over it. So it will get regulated very, very quickly. And from the AML perspective, especially for something what we are building, it's asset agnostic. So whether it's crypto or gold bars or cash, or, it really doesn't matter. So it's ultimately, I mean, there is no fighting crypto. It's here to stay. It's going to become a huge and a big market. And as long as I think it was either Kevin or Gary talking about it, that a big thing always is the source. Where is it coming from? So whether it's crypto or anything doesn't really matter. But at the moment, until it gets fully regulated, which it is not at the moment, it's a money launderer's dream. And right now it's quite dangerous, actually. But it's going to be one of the safest things soon.
Well, thank you. I'm going to interrupt right now because I figure we've got about 5 minutes left, and I want to make sure that Mark has a chance to summarize. But I certainly want to thank Jaspreet and Kevin and Gary. I love the insight that you've given us. I bet for a lot of people, a lot of this information is new, including how anti-money laundering efforts can make a dent in human trafficking. And now, Mark Sainer, over to you.
Well, Mitzi, first you said, will I allow you to go over for 1 hour? That 1 hour was your idea. I knew that this would lead, but it's actually a good thing. This is a stepping stone, as we said, right? And the number of people that have joined here, and the number of people invited others, and their hands up and questions galore. We need a proper forum for this to be aired out, so we can collaborate. Just as we're moving through the Midwest, we have like a city by city coordination, we have industry coordination, we have asset class coordination. What we're trying to do is within Philanthropies and marrying them to impact investments is to have this kind of coordination. This is clearly one of the things that we want to put our collective shoulders behind and really help. Some people around here I haven't seen for a while, some people are completely new. Just know that we're here, we're an open architecture forum. We're all just trying to help, but we're all trying to get to results, not just like, just get together and talk. So that said, I mentioned John and Zach, who have been great co-leaders, but everybody's a co-leader. I did this for 15 years with alumni connecting. So, I'm looking, whoever I see here, you're a co-leader. You're overall co-leader 361, this issue, and let's just, because foster care, is it cybersecurity, money laundering, prison, we need to break the cycles. Everybody needs to be redirected on their profit. So we're all trying to find those kind of solutions. So that being said, there's some people that I hate to not answer a question. We're gonna allow for like a half hour. We call it the informal, but I want everyone to be thinking of how, because this is our thing. I'm not Milken, I'm not World Economic Forum, I am us. We are us. How do we want to go about this as we go forward? Do we want to have a series of other stepping stones? We call them deep dives. They usually are like 1 or 3 hours, or we go at it like impact summits. We do, half-day, full days. We're trying to get together more. But that said, these are all those perspectives. This, what Kevin brings, Gary's bringing. You're sort of an overall leader, Mitzi, and Jaspreet's executing on all this stuff. We need to do it together. And I don't want to just cauterize one trafficker. Yeah, right. We want to do that. But let me just go quickly around. I know a few people and another person a little bit like
Hey,
me,
Mark.
Bo Beatty. Just when you tee yourself up, so how you could also help bring light. Part of it's bringing light to all this. But Zach, you want to say something?
Yes, thank you. And thank you, Mitzi, for organizing this. It's the presentation quality was top notch. I think we need to have a follow-up, I think, as an email or whatnot with all the actionable items and resources. And I think Kim Colt requested that as well. But this is the most engagement I've seen in the chat in a long time. That's one point. Gary's point of describing how trafficking works in different industries is important, because we're all investors and our portfolios are in different industries. So that'll help us understand how to benefit in our industry. And a bit counter, or not counter, like it was mentioned that there's the two levels of attacking this, the money laundering and also the, on the spot intervention or like the local countermeasures. I think we need both. So hopefully resources are on both, because it's a big world. There's still a lot of countries that are outside the Western financial loop where people could still launder their money, right? People could buy a lot of goods in XYZ country and then go sell it in the US, for example. So I think we need a balance of both. Gold money laundering is really important. I recommend this Netflix show, Dirty Money, that describes that in detail. I think, yeah, we invest in gold as well, so it's important to tackle that. Cryptocurrency, like Jaspreet said, it's an ongoing thing. I'd love to see more opportunities of investments as well. So Jaspreet could be one as an impact investment. So hopefully we'll hear more about her company. Yeah, so thank you all again. But we
Zach,
need a follow-up email. Yeah.
To that point, you're going to meet Jaspreet in Chicago, and Mitzi joins us either in Detroit or in Cincinnati. I can't remember. But and Sheila and other people. Well, the nice thing is we're going to have a lot of time to talk about this and get things done in person as we go through the Midwest. Well, I mentioned you, Bo. John, do you want to just say a quick word before I turn around?
I just want to say a quick word. So besides the co-leader, this has been a personal area for me for the past 2 years. My mother, I used to sell her body. My sister was trafficking in a carnival show. So this is very personal to me. And I think that when I heard the person, I thought I knew how evil this was, but when I heard that they harvest the organs afterwards, I almost threw up. So this is so evil. I don't even think the devil's involved in this work. I think it's just so evil. And every day I don't do something about it, I feel awful about it. And I'm so glad to see all of you here. I'm just so grateful. And for the 20 people that I know that showed up, I'm so grateful you're here. And I see that Mary, MJ, and Yvonne had their hands. I think MJ's had his hand up the longest if he still wants to ask a question. But that'd be great. If we could use the hand signals for questions now so we could keep some formality to this, that'd be great. But MJ, did you want to ask your question?
Yeah, thanks, John. And I'm very grateful to you to introduce me to this forum. Very touching, very human. So thank you to everyone. A quick question is, we talked about a large money associated with this, but what I understand from my work is actually this is like a supply chain. The person who initiates the trafficking gets very little money, and as use of cell phone, maybe $20 or $50 in countries such as India, to abduct, to kidnap a little girl. And that money is untraceable, and that's used for just basics. How do you stop that, disincentivize the source of that small money so that the first kidnapping doesn't happen? At the end of the process, there's huge monies involved, but the beginning is very small. So AML may not be that easy to work on this.
I can answer that. First of all, MJ, great to meet you. So I totally agree. Because these rings are very, very big. The person who's doing the first level job is not getting paid a lot of money. But the thing is, even the little money that they're being paid is being driven by someone up there who's making a lot of money. So think about it like a car manufacturing company, right? The owner makes a lot of money in Ford Motors, but the person who's putting in the small little parts is not really doing that. So these are these people doing the small little parts. When we go after from the money angle, if we're going at the guy at the very top, who is the one who is making all that money, it's not just one person, it's probably an entire team. If you eliminate that, then these guys have no incentive to go kidnap someone, because who are they supplying this to?
Thank you for sharing, but my work has shown differently. Small money is not disincentive. They need an alternative to earning that small money.
It sounds like a topic for us to discover more. Let's move to the next question with Mary at this point, if you're still on.
Hi, yeah, thank you very much. I'm Mary Hedall. I'm the head of philanthropic partnerships at the Global Fund to End Modern Slavery, and I am outside by water today, so sorry if I look a wreck. I want to thank you. Wow, this is such an important conversation, specifically talking about money laundering. Mitzi, thank you so much for pulling this together, and all the panelists were brilliant. My question is, how does government corruption play a part in this? There are laws for money laundering, and there are things that, you know, make us see, oh, he deposited 100,000 out of the blue in his, but where is corruption? Government as well as in the banks and in the businesses. I also wanted to thank Gary so much for bringing up the fact that it is more than just sex trafficking, that the forced labor is such a huge part of the modern slavery right now, as well as forced marriage, and the amount of money generated from that and going through the supply chain up to the, you know, the companies whose, you know, the supply chain or in the factories or whatever. And we need to hold those companies accountable as well. So I apologize. I could talk about this forever, but I'd love to get an answer on your thoughts about government corruption.
They have something called politically exposed persons that financial institutions take a look at. And if certain people are high-ranking government officials, they're supposed to get an enhanced due diligence review of all their transactions. And you can see, like, so I work for, Gary and I both worked for the government for years. So you knew what our paycheck was, and you knew it wasn't going to be something crazy. And suddenly now with this government official, whether even if he's the president of a country, he's only making so much money. And suddenly when he makes these deposits of huge amounts of cash, that's where the financial institution has to jump in and say, how did this guy make that kind of money? And how did he make it in cash, no less? So that's one of the things that the financial institutions do, is just by categorizing people and doing like a financial profile on certain job profiles. So for example, like government entity, high-ranking government official is called a PEP, a politically exposed person. They will get an enhanced due diligence review of all their transactions. So that's one way that we take a look at government corruption.
One other thing, this is Gary, you could look at the international aspect, that if something or someone is kidnapped or groomed in a different country, for them to get someplace else, they need travel documents. And the opportunity is there for someone in that office that issues the travel documents to issue them without much scrutiny. And it would be a way to look at, maybe, as Kevin said, certain jobs or certain job titles where people are obviously depositing or moving sums through their account that don't fit their lifestyle or their job.
Thank you all. That was very helpful.
Thank you, Mary. I think Yvonne was next. Yvonne, are you with us? We can't hear you, Yvonne. Yvonne, you're on mute.
Yeah, I know. So anyway, I just wanted to say it was a pleasure hearing everyone's thoughts and opinions. And actually, the last three individuals that spoke are the same topics that I brought up. You know, the smaller man on the totem pole is usually the one who gets caught by the police. They're the ones who are actually marginalized themselves because they're out doing this for the few dollars, and they're trying to find an occupation. So I think that's really important for us to really consider as going forward, how to empower and elevate those, disenfranchise them, disassociate them. Then also government officials. many of us here live in many different countries. I've lived in different countries. I'm from different countries, and we know how governments work. And also here in New York, I went to a massage parlor, a massage place for myself over here off on 46th Street. And I could tell clearly afterwards that these were not Asian, they were Spanish, and that they were definitely trafficked type of people. And it's happening right here in the city. So here we are. So the most important point here is to really think about is how are we managing on the ground up and upwards, because I think the largest are not being held accountable for, because they're very wealthy and people want to be around wealthy people and they want to be invited to their homes, their parties. And, and so that could be, I think we need to have a deep dive conversation, because why is this going on for so many years? And we haven't done anything. There's obviously a great think tank opportunity here. And the last is, I lost track of the last thing, but that's all I wanted to really share. And thank you so much for letting me contribute.
Well, it's certainly, there's no denying it's a lot easier to get the low guy than the top guy. Because top guys, because of the amount of money that they have, they're going to insulate themselves from the activity as much as possibly can. So they may not open up bank accounts themselves. They may have nominees do it. They may have some of the traffickers themselves open up the various accounts. So suddenly it's the transparency is very difficult to follow, to see when it goes up to the top guy. But I'll tell you right now, when we do get the low level guys, every time, we bring them in and talk to them, and we try to, we don't interrogate anymore. We call it interview, because it's a kinder, gentler term these days. So we interview people now. But the idea is to get them to sing. We want them to tell, all right, pal, maybe we'll make you a deal if you tell us who's the next guy up in the data chain along the line. So you may not see it right away. And granted, I mean, it's a lot tougher to get the Lex Luthors of the world than the low level guy. But that's always what we do, is we try to, move up the ranks and move up the ranks. It takes a while. I mean, Pablo Escobar was the richest man in the world for a long, long time, but he finally fell. El Chapo was one super rich, but he finally fell. Took a while, not in the speed frame you want to get, but look, because they're assets, they make it very difficult to track them back.
Again, it's a social thing. I know people who've gone to parties at their home, affiliated parties and things, and they just love the idea of going someplace luxurious. This hasn't been going on forever. I remember for Manhattan back in the 80s, and you would see pimps in meatpacking who would have their prostitutes right there.
I remember that. Yeah.
Right. But anyway, I just want to say, the last thing I want to say is the most important thing is to work with corporations and make sure that they're held accountable through their supply chain. I think without that, even in the Congo, we have people getting medals for child labor in the Congo, taking for cell phones right now, for Apple phones. We're not being responsible. And I think that's the way we really handle it from the corporate side.
I think you hit the nail on the head, accountability. You're absolutely right with that.
Thank you.
Yvonne, am I going to see you in a few minutes?
Yeah, okay, interest. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you so much. It was so great to see you again.
I'm going to be back on in like 3 or 4 minutes. I may lose it. Could Bo make a comment? Because I think he could shed a lot of light for all of us.
Yeah, I'm going to take the questions in order here, but we have time. So, Iva, do you want to go next? And what's that?
I think Bo is next, at least on my
okay. Go ahead, Bo.
Screen.
Right. That's right. Sorry, you're right. Go ahead, Bo.
Thanks, John. Thanks, Mark. Hi, I'm Bo Beatty. I'm with an organization called Traffic Jam Live, and my exposure to human trafficking, sex trafficking, was in Thailand in 2007. I helped launch a foundation called Grace Farms Foundation, where we hosted the UN several years and did a lot of research in the human trafficking space. So I just rambled that off. I went to Mitzi's website a few days ago, and what I saw on there was exceptional. We talk about empowering other anti-trafficking organizations. It's a very similar mindset that we at Traffic Jam Live have. So I'm going to try to just be real brief, let you know what we're trying to do, and it is to empower the hundreds, if not thousands, of other anti-trafficking organizations that are already out there, not recreating the wheel. And our disruptor is actually music, a way to connect to people through streaming concerts, letting other anti-trafficking organizations raise funds through these streaming concerts. And finally, a hand signal that we're creating for young girls to use while they're being trafficked. This involves law enforcement, a collaborative approach amongst many anti-trafficking organizations, and eventually Polaris and NCMEC, National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, need to be involved because they would be the recipients of the phone calls from airline attendants or hotel employees that would see these signals. So that was a real blast of a lot of information. I look forward to connecting with people down the road. This is a massive, evil, dark shadow. And sadly, you guys know about it. 98% of the people here in the United States have no idea what's going on. No idea.
And Bo, as a fellow ally, I would say this to you. I had dinner with him about a week ago, and I got to learn more about him. And he's left the corporate life and has dedicated his life to solving this problem. And it's really just fantastic to meet a man like this that's out there putting his brand out there, putting his name out there, and using his network to get it done. So thank you for your work. Cool. Iva, do you want to go next?
Sure. Some of my questions been answered, but I did want to see if you could address a little bit more the notion of a zero tolerance consensus, something that can be incorporated really much more visibly into the ESG and other corporate standards for accountability and responsibility. Is there something that we can do to really facilitate and accelerate on that score? And similarly, not just the corporates, but the banks. As a group of 361, as a group and part of investors and folks who bank with the large banks, is there a way of coming up with something that we can collectively organize, facilitate for banks to also sign on? I see this kind of like, you know, you had the divest and reinvest movement with regards to energy. Well, how about, you know, like divest and reinvest in terms of the knowledge that we would have about human trafficking and how it's impacting on the economy and businesses?
Great questions. Go ahead, Mitzi.
Actually, I was going to be very interested to hear what everybody else had to say. I don't have a great big answer other than I love the idea. Let's do it. But have somebody more knowledgeable in how it would be done, please speak up.
I think it's important that it just gets spotlighted, and somebody mentioned that before. That, you know, most people in America aren't even aware of this situation. So if we spotlight it, as you can see in other things in the last few years, when you put a lot of attention to it, things happen and things change. So I think it's just a matter of proper public relations and spotlighting it, and then accountability for the banks. Because the interesting thing here is that I mentioned before that criminals do it for profit. Unfortunately, the banks are here for one reason also, and they're there to make a profit. And so we got to make sure that there's accountability there, that they're not overlooking a few things that maybe they shouldn't for the purposes of to make a profit. And we've seen examples of that in the last few years with numerous banks that have gotten serious fines for kind of looking the other way, or what we refer to as willful blindness. So I just think that somehow some type of educational campaign about human trafficking, just to bring it to light, would be a home run.
I have an idea on this, and around the ESG comment that Ivan made. It's brilliant, because if you're not aware, the SEC and other regulators are now requiring that you disclose how you do on your ESG scoring. And this fits into 3 or 4 categories of ESG reporting. It's a topic I'm actually working on with the group on coming up with a set of, with my group at Athena International, where I support women leaders. We're figuring out how does women's leadership support ESG. And I think this is another great way to do it, either where we can get this to executives and say, this is why you should be doing this. It'll help your stock price. It'll help your investors, and really tie those that's back to the positive incentive mentality. So if the banks want to make profits and their ESG score comes out and this hits in these 4 categories, if they do well, that can actually help them uplift their ESG category. And again, this is not just buzzwords anymore. It's SEC required. It's coming down. It's going to happen. It's happening right now. So I think that's a great thread to follow up on. Thank you, Ivo. Mary, do you have any questions? Or anybody else want to contribute on that before we move on? I think it's an important topic.
Yeah, this is Gary. Just one follow-up on that. I agree with Kevin. You need to keep the sunshine on the problem, keep it highlighted, and engage your corporate, financial, and your legislatures to make sure that one, the activity is identified, and two, that there are consequences for engaging in this.
Great. Mary, did you have a question?
Yeah, John, thank you very much. By the way, John, great insight. Yeah, I think that's a great idea with ESG scores around the banks. That's a great added, I think that will complement the whole process. The question I had was around education of the children themselves, right? Probably there's a lot of programs out there. I just myself don't know about them, but I'm involved with starting to get into a lot of schools, especially in some of the countries that are outside of the States. Across Africa and South and Central America, as well as India. And are there programs out there to start training kids at a very young age? I think it was Courtney that mentioned she put together a program for NYU. Is that something that we know of? That is it at the earlier stages? I know probably there's a fine line on how you manage that with children to make sure psychologically they're okay and they can absorb that information well. But is there any programs out there that that anybody's aware of, and how can we help further get that knowledge into the schools at the levels to start educating children earlier?
I'll jump in to answer that. There are several that I'm aware of, but they tend to be like at the city level. Like New York has several exciting ones. Other states or other cities do also. I wish there were a national effort.
Great. Any more answers? Bo,
actually, Mitzi, that brings about how are, like Kevin and Gary, like how are we doing on the local versus federal silos? Are how coordinated are the law enforcement agencies, let alone the multilateral?
Yeah, well, I tell you right now, with the whole defund the police movement is just not a good thing for this particular topic, because you're going to have less and less special details in the police department dedicated to things like this, because you're going to have to put whatever cops that you have left, they're going to have to respond to emergency situations first. So there's going to be less and less special units, and there's going to be less and less money available for training for these things. So I'm certainly no fan of defund the police, and I think that whole concept is the silliest thing I've ever heard in my life. But it's going to have effect. It's going to have a trickle-down effect on all these various things, whether it's drug trafficking, or whether it's human trafficking, or just physical abuse by spouses. If you don't have the law enforcement out there, if you don't have the training for law enforcement to do it, you just open your door. Somebody mentioned before, it's pure evil. You're right. There is evil out there in the world. And I know there's a lot of people don't want to believe it, and they believe in rainbows and sunshine, but there's evil out there. And you fight evil by having a very good and educated and well-trained law enforcement force. That's the first defense for this.
I can just add to that as well, and Kevin, thanks for that. But I mean, obviously this has to be, because somebody asked on the federal part, so that's also important, because this has to be looked at a tactical level, and like from the police, like, you know, to rescue somebody. But even at a federal level, where we've actually already initiated a discussion and spoke briefly on that, where in order to fight such a big crime, there's an organized, we were actually invited by the Department of Treasury and a group called FinCEN, which all it does is fight financial crimes. And human trafficking is one of their top priorities. So they are looking, and we had a very frank and a very open conversation with them. It's a fairly top secret group, and on how all the measures they are looking at. So they wanted to understand, we also wanted to make sure that they approve of what we are doing. Absolutely, at a federal level, there's a huge level of interest, because just because you're in the government doesn't mean you have visibility and transparency into everything. And that's what we were told very openly, and they said, why we want technologies and solutions and firms like yours, but they're very interested in what we were doing, how closely we are aligned with Win This Fight. Actually, we are working with Win This Fight together, and our solution is motivated obviously to prevent human trafficking, but prevent human trafficking to prevent human trafficking from the angle of money laundering?
Just to point on the FinCEN, FinCEN is the repository for all of the financial reports that are filed by financial institutions or businesses that appear to be suspicious or required by reporting. And it has become commonplace for investigators for all types of criminal activity to run the suspects in their criminal investigation through the financial database. And that financial database, if there is a hit, it will link to additional individuals, businesses, telephone numbers, IP addresses, email addresses, and a whole host of opportunities for law enforcement to expand their investigations. So FinCEN is critical to this because they're a main coordinator of the financial database, and it is open to law enforcement for querying and is well used.
May I speak to a couple of points? My name is Jeff Trotter. I posted some comments. Is it possible to just make a comment and ask a question?
Go for it.
Great.
On the ESG related point, I think it's excellent. And I think we should collectively look at the EU and their movement now around corporate sustainability reporting disclosures, which will, in essence, surface from a transparency perspective a lot of supply chains of some of the biggest corporations in the world. And there was a reference to the Congo and to metals and materials being mined, etc. And so there is an opportunity here at a global level, because the SEC are frankly in catch-up mode, and that's good. They're going to be catching up. But that particular set of standards coming from the EU will be tremendously helpful. That's a comment. The second is more a question, given the audience of 361ers, philanthropic money, etc. I referenced in an earlier comment a group called DDN, Disruptive Data Network. The founder of that group is a lady called Michelle Bongiovanni. Some of you may know her. She's been doing some tremendous work with her nonprofit called Heal Our World. DDN was seeking capital from a philanthropic group or groups to really help bring together the multi-stakeholder elements that will help solve this challenge, which is everything from multi-faith-based organizations. In fact, we convened at the United Nations with one of two groups that have observer status at the UN, which is the Vatican City. In the room also was the Jewish faith, the Islamic faith, the Catholic faith, Christian faith in broader sense. But we also had law enforcement agents from Interpol, Europol, you name it, including the Met at a very granular level in London. And big data providers and big technology folks who have AI capabilities. You know, when you bring all of these things together, you really have an opportunity to go into the dark web and really start identifying the flows of capital. And that's fundamentally what we need to be addressing here. And if anybody, I put my contact details in the chat, and if anybody wants to reach out to me and learn a little bit more about DDN, maybe even have a conversation about DDN and what they're doing and how they wish to set about doing this, I would be more than happy to do that.
That sounds great, Jeff.
Thanks, Jeff. Thanks, Jeff. Anyone else?
Mitzi, you want to chat a bit about, you and I spoke yesterday for a bit about how we can not only move forward, but maybe work on a collective where we bring all these resources together on this call, and how would you like to see it happen, Mark and Mitzi? Like what do you recommend going forward? We had some ideas yesterday around creating a fund, around creating a donor advised fund so we can raise capital for all of us. I'm open to helping lead that with the group. Want to check with you, Mitzi and Mark, on how you'd like to handle that.
I'd sure love to have a donor advised fund. And I don't know how committed everybody is to their financial institution, but I can tell you that UBS has something called the Optimus Fund, and they will match sometimes 10%, sometimes even more. If you have, their specialty is attacking human trafficking. And if we were to have a donor advised fund with them, it would be miraculous. And just a quick, I mean, I'm not personally associated with them. Wait, I am a client, but I'm not an owner or anything. But I do know that they have a spectacular plan for figuring out in one country, and they've chosen Bangladesh. What if we could use everything that we've learned from academic discipline, from just everybody that you can think of, or bring to bear all the skills that we know of for attacking human trafficking and try to eliminate it in one country. And from there, learn best practices that we could spread throughout the world. They are very big on convening the kind of gathering together of all possible kinds of knowledge. And so, boy, I'd sure love to enlist them in a donor advised fund where they help fund what we do by their contribution of 10% or more. And, the results could be absolutely world changing. But I'm not wedded to UBS. It's just that I happen to know up close and personal the efforts that they're putting into this.
So I heard two things there. One is a knowledge base that's shared between all these groups, which I think would be very helpful. And I think we have enough IT power on this call to set that up. And then two, I heard around, donor advised fund might be a good vehicle. And then three, who would be the right firm to do the asset management? And I think that we can sort that out. Mark, or Mary, you had another question or input?
No, I did. Just quickly, Mitzi, I love this idea. I think it's that kind of collaboration that is really, really, really going to make the difference. So count me in 100%. I want to follow up with you on that if possible. And John, can you make that happen?
Yes, I can. For full disclosure, I am biased. Mary's been a 10-year friend and she's on my board, and she does amazing work. So all of you should get to know her.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Questions that weren't answered in the chat? Mark, you're back. Any next steps? I think we should. I'd like to promote that we have this group reconvene every 2 weeks or 3 weeks.
I mean, I did have a question in the chat, but I think you can. Somebody can just follow up with that later.
Okay, great.
One that I put in the chat, because it's like about just data and geek stuff.
Yeah. And Marcus, this is a hot button for me, so I'm happy to really help lead this with you.
No, we definitely want to go co-lead on specific things. I just think it interrelates with so many like foster care, prison education, 100%. Breaking cycles, yada yada. And we want to summit on this. Maybe we do another stepping stone toward that. It could be part of our impact summit in the fall. Let's go for it.
So if it's okay for everybody, we'll set up an email communication with the group that attended. So and those who want to.
Your friends are here.
Oh, my friends are here.
361ers.
All right.
You have Nicole.
Yeah.
We didn't know that Richard was so tall.
Yeah, Richard.
Anand. Margaret, who's advising an Africa venture fund. Peter raises money for venture funds. We're getting together here. We do every Thursday when I'm in town.
Excellent.
So I'll mute myself. You can carry it on, and let that be part of the action steps. I mean, I'd love to, every Thursday at 10:30, our community gets together to talk about how we can leverage each other, and then we could have specific meetups like on this topic.
That sounds great. I like that. So what I also heard was let's look at the foster care organizations and the returning citizens. I think that's really helpful. I think that's a good point that we should integrate with them, so we're not in our own silo within this area, because I think they're all interconnected.
Here.
Zach, any thoughts on this? Mitzi, anyone else?
Well, okay, I'll jump in with a thought. And I don't want to abuse people's time, so I'm not going to go on long, but good Lord, this is exciting. We can really make a difference. When you get all of this brain power together and all of this energy and caring and recognizing of the problem, I'm as excited as can be about what we got done today. Thank you, everybody.
Well, and I don't think anybody here is here because they don't want to be here. So I'm just so grateful for everybody's time. Laureen, you had a question?
Actually, I wanted to speak to Mitzi basically, and that is, you mentioned something about the lack of education for younger women, and several other people were kind of bringing that in. And to me, looking at what everyone said, we're all talking about the end of the problem, stopping the money laundering, making it less enticing to people. And obviously the lower end people are the ones who are going to suffer because they no longer have any money to pay for their basic needs. But I like the education program, and I don't see why we couldn't put together a simplified program, maybe stepped up through ages from right from the beginning of school years, right through college, to blanket at least one country at a time. And I'd start with the US, since we obviously have more funding than most other countries to deal with a lot of this. I don't see why that could not be a program, and teachers need to know about this. There are not many people who really discuss human trafficking in social situations in the States. So I would like to see a little bit more awareness of this in general.
Let's do it. I mean, I'm so on board with that, I can't tell you, because I want to have prevention. I want to disincentivize the traffickers, but good Lord, wouldn't it be neat if some young woman who gets lured into it, if she doesn't get lured in because she knows this is where this leads.
Well, and there's so many aspects to this too that I see, because we know our children have gone through a horrible year and a half or so because of COVID. But in general, I see teenagers nowadays. I mean, I know when I went to school, when my children went to school, and they went to school overseas, so it was a different matter. But the pressure, the peer pressure, and with social media and everything, we need something to give them enough information on the ground level to kind of armor them against the constant barrage of negative reinforcement that they get.
I've mentioned before that I know that in New York, there's some efforts on this. What if we could build on what they've already done, so we're not reinventing
I'd love
the
to see more about their program. I don't know.
I'll get it for you. I'll get it for you.
Oh, that would be great. That would be
no, because
wonderful.
they're really pretty fabulous. They're done in the form of cartoons. And
I was
like
just going to say, you know, something
yeah, I mean,
simple.
Yeah, it's psychologists who develop this, but I would love as a mission to, you know, take the best of what every local area is doing and see if we could influence it to be national.
That would be a great idea. A campaign would be, you know, an ideal thing. We put campaigns on for every bloody thing, every, you know, drug, etc. on TV. It would be nice to blanket it with something that was informative.
I'm wholeheartely in favor of this. I'll give it my all.
To follow on with that, and everybody's welcome to stay on. We're not going to shut this down. So it's an important topic. To follow on with that, if you think about, I work also in the counterterrorism space. I don't talk about it a lot because, you know, we don't want to talk about these things, but we have to use the same methods of counter narratives, right? And we have to also look at, unfortunately, we have to look at a lot of people involved in this, women and men that are involved in trafficking, as child soldiers, because they're typically recruited when they're a child. Young boys are recruited in New York City. They're committed to do a smaller crime, and then pretty soon they say, we're going to tell your parents, and then they get them to do bigger crimes. And so we have to think about this in that way. If we don't, we're never going to solve. We have to give off ramps for those that are actively involved in it. Not the heads. I want to chop their heads off, but the people, the other people that are also victimized, that are recruited into this space. We've got to think about that, because if we just hate them, they're going to hide more. And we've got to think about that. So I agree with you, Lauren.
Absolutely, they need an escape route.
Yep,
and a backup for it.
Just like we're dealing with terrorism. It's the same kind of concepts. Mitzi, we also talked about, Mitzi and I bonded around, we both had the concept of developing a massive online game that allows you to identify and hunt the traffickers, and also allows you to, as you're involved in the network, to get off-ramped and hiding inside of existing games like Minecraft and kind of making it low key. But that's something we're also an initiative we're going to spin up. So again, all those who want to
let's hope there won't be parental controls on it.
John, maybe this is my last thing I can say is, can we get together 2 weeks from today
you determine the time.
Yep.
At 11 o'clock, we usually focus on the Midwest tour. 10:30 is the general Philanthropies. We can do it at 9:30, 10. No, I know, but we can do it after. I'll leave it to you, but we'll facilitate this for everybody. Let's keep this going.
That sounds awesome. Thank you. Anything else anybody would like to contribute? Put it in the chat. You have my email in the chat. You know how to get a hold of us. We're here, and we really appreciate all of you.
Thank you,
Mitzi,
John.
thank you, Mitzi and the panelists. Thank you and bless you. So grateful.
Thank you, everyone.
We'll see you
Thanks,
soon.
gang.
Bye.
Great
Bye, Mitzi.
explanation. Thanks.
Bye.
Thank you very much.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.